Hi, welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya.
Well, I'm here, Nikki Listretto,
And
Tipu the Wonder Dog, and a whole host of people from
host,
Humboldt. A host from Humboldt.
This is the Humboldt High Five group, and they are, what did you call it? Multi-partner limited LLC.
Multi-member LLC.
I think you could also say they're a bunch of friends that come from southern Humboldt. They realized that if they wanted to survive as small farmers, because that's the plight we're all trying to conquer right now, that they would get together and do it together as a business. Brilliant idea. Absolutely brilliant. Folks, listen up, because this is a way to do it.
Right.
So very happy. Let's introduce each one of you. Go for it.
I'm Robert. I'm at the very southeastern corner of Humboldt County, where the actual Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino counties all
Kind of
join.
right in the middle, huh?
Well, that's kind of the point there. Yeah. And
Just like us.
it's good to be here. Thank you.
I'm Rio, Lady Sativa Farm in Bembo. It's good to be here.
And I'm Tina, and I'm Moonmaid Farms, and I am also in the heart of the Emerald Triangle, right where all the counties meet.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's really good to be here.
Nice.
I'm Craig, Alpenglow Farms, and pretty much right down the dirt road from Rio on the just off the 101 on the Humboldt-Mendo line.
Yeah, I'm Johnny. I'm the westernmost farm. I live out by Edwardsburg with Huckleberry Hill Farms.
Well,
Nice.
see, one of the
Nice to
things,
be here.
Thanks.
One of the things that brings all these people together with themselves is the fact that they all care about the environment, and they've been growing here for many years, and there is a way to grow cannabis that's environmentally friendly and produces the best cannabis. It's organic, it's easy on the rivers, and so on. So maybe you want to say a little bit about that, your experience of growing that kind of way.
It's just actually it's more of how I was raised. My parents we've lived here for 50 years, and when I was 10, they just taught me more about gardening and how to take care of the land and the fish, and it's just been a way of life for me. And,
A heritage is one of the words we use, right?
yeah, that's a good word to use, and so that's kind of something similar we all have as a group is taking care of the land and the place we live in.
Okay.
Nice.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say in Johnny's case especially, he comes from a line of fishermen as well, so they're definitely fish friendly with their practices and how they operate their farm. Johnny has 3 rain catchment ponds on his property,
I see.
which help with that, so he can
Great.
forbear from the water all summer.
And are you all growing absolutely, I'm sure, organically? And do you have certificates for that sort of thing? Or, I mean, are you growing hugel culture, permaculture, all this stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like you're all pretty living soil in line with what we're doing here,
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're all into regenerative farming, and I think that most of us have hugel cultures at this point. Like, I remember that was one of the first things I was really interested in doing, and I learned it from a permaculture book. And I looked at it, I just read about it, and I thought that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so built a hugel culture that was, I think it was 9 years ago. And now that's doing really well. It took some time, but now I have, several hugel culture beds, and it feels really good to be doing that, and and also for the inputs to be coming from the land.
Yes, right.
Do you know?
Yeah, so
Great.
Hugel culture, in case you haven't heard that, Hugel is a German word which means a little hill or a mound, right? And culture is a way of cultivating. So you can either make a little kind of circular mound, or you make a long mound trench, and then you throw in some wood, some oak and maple and stuff like that, and leaves, and you build it up. But the key thing you're saying is try and have as many of the ingredients coming from your own land, right? So what, do you grow alfalfa and oats and stuff like that to put on there? Yeah, nettles
For
and
crops
comfrey?
during the winter time. Yeah, I think we're all pretty heavy on green manure
Yeah.
concept of cover crops with nitrogen fixing.
So what are those crops specifically?
Like legumes and veg,
Favas.
and fava's a legume, and clovers. We've done buckeye. Those are kind of the main ones in there.
Garlic in the winter.
And Robert grew this beautiful bud that's sitting here on
Oh,
the
this
table.
one here, yeah.
Smells
Yeah.
good.
What strain is that, do you know?
That's our OG, our rattlesnake OG.
Nice,
Our
beautiful.
farm is Villa Paradiso.
Okay. So that's interesting to me, that it's not like you all came together to make one company. You all have your own individual brands. So I take it all of you are pretty well settled into the new world of semi-legalization as we pass through this when you got together? Is that what happened? And then you made one main entity that's you're all under, an umbrella.
Yeah, actually, we all were familiar with each other, but Craig kind of, from Alpenglow, kind of brought us all together as a group, and then we all started working
ringmaster.
like that together, and we recognized our similarities and stuff, and now together as a group, we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And
No, I remember talking to you at the Cannabis Farmers Market a couple
Right.
of years ago,
Yeah.
and you said, "Man, we got to get going, and we need to get organized." And so you carried the ball, man. You started. That's great.
Definitely. Going into this, it's hard. I think the person that tries to stay sheltered and try to be run their own empire, I think those days you might have a lot more challenges coming into this.
Well, there are a lot of people who are in denial out in the woods, and
Yeah.
many of those are the longest-term growers. Some of them the biggest, I suppose. But I'm not so sure if that strategy is really going to work.
We've all been at it quite a long time, and we feel definitely a strength in working together, and even our groups joining other groups, because fractured groups are going to have a harder time.
So Rio, you were talking about community, which is one of those things, and you're involved with the health food store up in Garberville.
Yeah, my mom started it in the late 70s,
Oh,
and
really?
right out of our house, which probably didn't have a permit for that. But then
Permit
moved-
schmermits, but now we need it.
But we moved on to the mini storage, and she slowly grew the business, and she's been part of the community. So I was raised in Southern Humboldt, Johnny, and being a product of that community, I felt like I was raised by 20 different families, because
Yeah.
you just get
Well,
pitched
see,
around.
I've been talking to a lot of people
And,
about what do you think is the biggest threat at this as we change this, and everybody seems to say it's losing that community, right? That it was a
Totally.
community of trust, it was a community of knowing each other and the confidence and so on, and helping each other, sharing starts, sharing seeds, sharing information, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Our communities were like our little secret societies.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
we hung together. We were all off the grid. We were all building crazy houses. We
Right.
all had to deal with crazy dirt roads, and we all were growing, and we all helped each other grow.
Right.
And when someone had a hard time, we'd get together and help.
That's
Right.
right.
And and that's kind of the morning thing. If I have is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't want to see that go away, because
No, I know people say some rats ate my starts, right? Everybody, here's 30 starts, man.
Right,
Keep
totally.
on going. Or something happened, I got mold, whatever. Oh, well, here's my shake. You can make hash out of the way people just help each other in the community.
And we're trying to, that's one of the benefits of this group, is because we all come from different parts of the community,
I see.
that we all are talking about those same things, as like, how do we bring this heritage community into the
Oh,
light?
yeah, he's going.
How do we bring it into the light,
Right.
but still hold those same values of sharing and caring
That's
and
right.
and community
That's
and raising the new generation and fish friendly, and like
That's
there's
right.
these strong values that we don't want to lose those. That's what makes
Right.
life meaningful up here.
Yeah.
So
Maybe you should describe to people what you mean by fish friendly, because you're not talking about fish emulsion in your fertilizer or something. You're talking about taking the water from the streams, etc., to keep in a way that only protects the fish, right? So
Yeah,
just,
like Craig
just to
was
clarify
talking.
that.
Sorry, excuse me, but like what Craig was talking about, my farm is built with rainwater catchment. So the only thing I water my cannabis with throughout the summer is water that I caught over the winter. So it
Right.
affects none of the streams around me
Right.
or this or that. And then a lot of my ditches that drain off of my property, I've hammered them with this 3 to 4 inch rock, so it slows the speed of the water that goes down into the stream, and it doesn't allow any of that sediment to end up into the spawning tributaries.
Yeah,
And,
that's the key thing, and that just happens
Right.
also from making roads back into the wilderness too. They're very concerned about runoff from the roads and that they're properly graded and so on.
Yeah, and we're all still battling the logging days too.
The scars
so that
left,
has
right.
something to do with all this, the fish and
Right.
the poor spawning tributaries. So
and buffer zones between your garden and waterways. So making sure you either do a swale or have some vegetation growing between your garden and any
Right.
runoff.
Right. Well, that's being investigated by the water board, right? You need a permit for the.
Yeah, all of us are going through, have relationships with the state water board, the regional water board, and certainly with the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
yeah.
We
all of
all
that.
we all have to go through
Exactly.
that.
We're
And it
best
is-
friends these days.
Yeah, totally. They're hanging out, and but it's a great opportunity for to be able to fix the kind of right the wrongs from the past.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it kind of was a drag because I didn't put in that skid road that turned into a ravine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's on my property, and we're all stewards of our property, so
That's
we
right.
take that's
And
part of taking it on.
The funny thing is, like, the community up here has been advocating for those things for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Like
legaliz-
Friends of the Eel River and
Yeah,
stuff
like,
like that.
but
right.
legalization in our permitting is actually institutionalizing some of these environmental values
Yeah.
that we've been advocating
Well,
from
that's
outside
right.
the system.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
we're
pretty cool.
trying to cooperate with the system. But now you're saying how many been permitted in Humboldt County so far for not just for growing but for manufacturing various other things?
I think as of last week, there was like 62 permits, which include distribution, processing, this and that. But I think in total there might be 12 existing farms that might have gotten permits, and then there might be another 12 of new cultivation sites
I
that
see.
are also
But
permitted.
how many
So-
growers do you think there are in Humboldt County altogether? Total
Oh my
number.
goodness.
That's a good question, man.
How many
Yeah.
dirt roads are
I mean,
there?
everybody has a
It's an-
guess
it's an
on this.
estimate.
In Mendo, we say 10,000. He doesn't really say he smokes that much.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
so
sorry.
high.
He got high and now he's spacing out.
I'll get really
And
quiet,
so
but,
on. So-
I think their estimate on saying there's 10 to 13,000 grows that maybe aren't permitted. I think that is so low that it's
Really?
scarily low.
Yeah. But
And-
so, okay, similar in Mendo, we've say 10,000 growers is the number everybody throws out. So if we've got 26,000 to 30,000 growers in Mendo and Humboldt alone, and so far 700 have applied only for permits in Mendo, and probably a similar number, maybe 1,000 have applied for permits in Humboldt.
It's crazy.
2,500 in Humboldt, but they if you weren't active with your permit for 6 months, they'd kick you out
Oh,
of the
6
system.
months, really?
Yeah, because there's an enormous amount of work to
Right.
maintain, to getting that permit.
Yes, there is. All these different
And so a lot of people
planning and building
just
and
applied to kind of make us,
Right.
just a placeholder, like, well, that'll get us out of trouble for at least a
Right.
year, you
yeah,
know.
but no, it ain't happening that
That's
way,
the truth.
right? And so
We've been
peop-
at it for like a year and 3-4 months,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
still waiting.
Almost
Wow.
2 years.
Yeah.
We
Just got
started
some more
2
hoops
years.
to
We
jump through.
started 2 years ago with planning and building and with the sewer thing and so on. Yeah, and
Wow.
all those little steps, and each one costs money because you got to pay an engineer or someone to
it's
come in. We have
ridiculous,
yeah.
surveyors and so on. Yes, so I mean that's the whole thing about this transition. It's going to be good for the environment ultimately, following all these rules, right?
Definitely.
It
But
will.
it's a strain on
Yeah.
all of us to make
Well.
that transition all of a sudden, right? So
Right.
many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's needed. But the black market is the unknown element in this thing, right? Is the black market still happening? Will all the rules wipe out
No.
the black market, or will
Well,
the economy wipe it out?
Johnny, Tina, and I were at a planning department meeting last week, and actually Tina got her permit.
Yeah, right, Tina.
That's our second permit.
Yes.
Johnny had our first
Yeah.
permit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two in the group
But
so
the
far.
conversation
So,
is that
with
they
you
make the
guys.
permit process so difficult for the farmer that they can't do it. They're
Right.
basically supporting the black market.
Yes.
You know, so
Yeah.
look at it
Yeah.
that way. And actually, those guys on the commission were having that conversation, which was cool.
Yeah.
You know, I thought
That
they were
is
like,
interesting.
And
aware.
people are really starting to engage. There's a lot of conversation happening. There's a lot of dialogue. There are community meetings. The planning department wants to hear from people. The legislators want to hear from people.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, they do.
Same in Mendo is happening, you know, and that's a really good thing. It's kind of like we're trying to get democracy off the ground here, right?
voice.
And because the growers have never they never came out of the mountains. No one ever voted or even registered to vote. Half the growers don't have a driver's license, checking account, anything, right? Now the whole step forward into being politically active. You're talking at the Board of Supervisors. Did you think you were going to do that 5 years ago?
Right.
Oh, I didn't talk. No, I was over here. But there is a lot of like voices being generated. Like Tina's on the board of the International Cannabis Farmers Association.
right, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's turning into becoming a very real voice.
Yeah.
and these groups getting together, it's really instrumental in
Right.
moving this whole process forward.
Well,
and
we're giving
spread it
we're
forward.
giving them information which they don't have, right? There's CGA and there's Mendocino Cannabis Policy Institute. There's a MAPS project,
Yeah.
and all these different groups are putting out this information to try and inform the regulators
Right.
who don't have a clue about how it really works, right?
Yeah, advocacy is a huge part of this.
Right. So,
And-
but the other thing about the black market still being encouraged by all this rigmarole, right? Isn't that queer? But are people still sitting on pounds? That seems to be
Yes,
the
they
case. A
are.
lot of
This
people
year-
are still sitting on
This
pounds
year
from
they are.
2016,
Yeah,
right?
they are.
So maybe it's not even the rules that are going to stop the black market. It's the economy that's
Yeah.
going to stop
No,
the black
you know what
market.
else is going to stop the black market, but maybe not for people like us, guys? Is just this, recent news out about how they're finding all of the, everything that's being grown down in the Central Valley or now everywhere they want to do these mass grows has this insecticides, whether they like it or not, because it's
Farm
in the
drift.
soil
Yeah.
or it's from
And in
the
the
farm next
soil and
door,
drift, yeah.
Right.
blowing
Well, they're
over.
testing to the
So
billion,
they might think they're growing organic, but it doesn't test out. So so all of that's going to change so that people now are going to say they want to buy from a dispensary because they don't want to buy black market because it might be that kind of stuff, and they're realizing how bad it is to smoke cyanide, basically. And what will be the only thing available is what we're doing up here in our small little private valleys where we know our neighbors aren't using microbutanol or whatever it is. And this is going to be like about the only really pure stuff you can get that guaranteed is pure.
Well, it turns out
So
this
it's
is the
very
best
important
place.
what we're doing, It's
Well,
This
we're
is the
living in
best
this
place to grow.
agroforestry
We're not
zone.
and we have to keep it pure.
And you know
What's
what? That's really
This
important.
agroforestry zone that we're in,
Right.
where we can actually
Yeah.
get some of our inputs from the
But
forest.
see, now we have to deal with the environmental groups before we wrap this up, because there's a big environmental group down in Willits who are very, very much against any farmers being up in the mountains, and they want us all down on ag land. But ag land is less than 3% of the county of Mendocino, right? So it's very little, and it's already owned, and the price will go way up. So how do we deal with the environmental groups that just want us blanket out of the mountains? And to say, okay, how can we prove to them that we're actually beneficial rather than negative?
well,
Right, that's
one,
the idea. We got to say we're making it better rather than making it worse.
Well, that's
Totally.
what's so important about sun-grown and regenerative farming, and using the inputs from your land, and using water that is rain.
So do we
rainfall water.
legislate that? How do we make sure that everybody's doing that? Right, that's the
Constantly.
key
You gotta
thing.
vocalize it and
Yeah.
get it out there.
So, and that's ultimately it grows the best pot.
And have an opinion. And so, if people walk into a dispensary and say, "I want sun-grown,"
Right.
Right.
then that's going to make a difference.
Sun-grown
right.
organic. I mean, because
Sun-grown
that's not.
organic,
Yeah, mill sun.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's key.
Yeah.
Well, one of
and-
the things the ICFA is doing is supporting this environmental impact study on the different ways of growing cannabis.
Right.
Okay, all the way from full-on warehouse indoors and desert hot springs to what we do.
Right.
And actually getting carbon footprint and pesticide loads and VOCs into the atmosphere,
Right, right.
and really getting a real assessment, which has never been done.
Right. It's hard.
And
to
so
do.
state legislators don't even have anything to run with.
there's no
like-
data.
Exactly, white paper they call
Exactly.
it.
Right.
And so,
so we need research.
yeah.
Right. But see, they're saying that if you drive 25 miles on your dirt road, you're causing environmental damage just by the dust, the diesel fumes, and all of that. And how is that comparable to an indoor grow? I mean, is there any way to measure that, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
there is.
and all that stuff, and that's what like Chris Van Hook says. Well, okay, you guys are driving all that. Are you taking the water from the headwaters and so it doesn't go down? All those are key issues that
Yeah.
have to be addressed.
Was he against the Willits bypass too? A 101 bypass around Willits?
Yes, they were.
I bet they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is 20 minutes faster drive. I have to say,
Well,
you
also
know.
sitting
So
idling at
Yeah.
stoplights isn't real environmentally conscious,
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
they fought that tooth and
Yeah.
nail.
That's
for
a really
sure.
good point.
Well, what we
Yeah.
need is hovercrafts. And once we have hovercrafts, solar-powered hovercrafts.
I like it.
Human beings
All
just
right.
need to disappear.
Anyway, we could now that we
Have
got a
hemp
little
oil.
stoned
Have
here.
a
We
little
can get
hemp oil.
really off on this now, the stoned conversation. But okay, what do we got? Like, is there anything else? Like, say you really think you need to say right now because we got a minute left? Does anything wrapped up? What about you?
I think it's important to keep the education. We're all in our little segmented farms here across the southern Humboldt line. We're putting out education.
Right.
And
Great.
Johnny just had a bunch of groups and nonprofits at his place. Never been in a greenhouse before.
Right.
These people are seeing what it looks like to be fish friendly.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I personally think that we all just need to know that we're still in this together. Trinity, Humboldt, Mendocino, if we all stay bonded in a tight-knit family group, we can make this all work. And that's super important to know. Know that there's hope,
Right.
and having hope is super important. And we can't let it break us apart. I think is really
on.
important.
Wow, man, thank you.
Well
Thank you.
said.
Thank you. That's really, what can we say more than that, folks? So support your local sun-grown organic farmer, and preferably from the Emerald Triangle, and always smoke the clean, pure stuff, because that's where you're really getting not just the medicine, but you're getting an inspiration. So thanks for joining us, and
Thank
see you next
for
time.
joining us.
Thank
too.
you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
That was great.
Really.
All right.
Okay.